A Democratic strategist said, why are they all there defending his affair with a porn star? Is that what you're doing?
No, not at all, Martha. I mean, look, I was there to support a friend.
Here we are. We just did a breakdown of the Veep stakes moving to the criminal courthouse in New York. And I'm joined by Vanity Fair special correspondent and former CNN anchor Brian Stelter, author of the book Network of Lies, has a specialty in this media aspect of what we looked at on the right, as well as the Republicans. Oh, yeah. And Jay Cohen-Duri, a veteran of 3 presidential campaigns, including Obama's. Starting on the politics, Jay, I was careful to mention that, of course, people can debate this stuff, but one of the things the trial is doing is not only putting heat on Trump himself as a defendant, but it draws attention to how many of these people said, in their own adult lives, J.D. Vance, Speaker Johnson, and others, that they opposed Trump for exactly the type of reasons that are on display in the trial.
Yeah, but those comments were made before the Republican Party became the cult of personality that it now is. I mean, the analogy never gets old. Donald Trump is Tyler Durden, and the Republican Party is Fight Club. And the reality is if you think about it historically, the Republican Party has always been kind of a single-issue party. It started out as an anti-slavery party. During the Cold War, it was an anti-communist party. If you remember, during the Double Zeros, it was an anti-terrorism, war on terrorism party. And now the single cause, is Donald Trump, the person of Donald Trump. And the Republican Party has been on this path for quite some time.
Brian, I saw, as I mentioned to viewers, because I was covering it today, I was down there, as many of our colleagues have been, and we've been rotating, too, inside the courtroom. But I saw Vivek walking around, making it a media and campaign appearance. Here's what he said.
I learned a lot from being in there in person. It is one of the most depressing places I have been in my life, but it is fitting because the only thing more depressing than the environment of that courtroom is what's actually happening in there. It's straight out of a Kafka novel.
Straight out of Kafka, straight out of Compton, straight out of today's Republican Party. Your thoughts?
I can't wait to see the actual real-life movie that's going to be made of this trial, because today was the stuff of actual drama, and people should see it. It's a shame we don't have cameras. But I do think the Republicans suddenly, belatedly showing up to support Trump is in some ways the most interesting thing that happened today. Where were they for the last 3 weeks? Where were Trump's friends? People were focused on why isn't his family coming? None of his friends showed up until this week. And now all of a sudden, they're all popping up, whether it's for the Veep stakes or because he's pressuring them to be there. But it is so revealing and so sad about the state of the Republican Party that they're all belatedly showing up. Did you see what Lisa Murkowski said today? One of these establishment Republican senators, she was asked, why aren't you going to New York City to be at the trial? And she said, don't we have something better to do around here than to watch stupid porn trials? And the reality is, Ari, no, the GOP lawmakers have nothing better to do, right, than to sit around, take their talking points from Fox.
Yeah, but it's not just that they literally have nothing in the literal sense. When you campaign, you go places, as both of you know, to draw attention to that very place. So you might go to an auto plant to draw attention to that. You go to a school to talk about education. Brian, they're here because they clearly feel that they owe Trump that. The speaker has to stay in his good graces. He's holding on to a narrow vote there. The Veep stakes is trying to get a job. But why attract attention to the trial?
Right. They feel pressure not just from Trump, but from the pro-Trump media. And this is an underappreciated aspect of the story. At the outset of this trial, the far-right media outlets that Trump voters trust tried to ignore the trial, tried to downplay it. And honestly, Ari, I think what happened is the likes of MSNBC were taking this seriously. They knew this was a big news story. And so those far-right outlets have gradually started to take it more seriously. They've started to show up. Some of the Fox anchors are now showing up in the courtroom. There's been this very belated realization that they can't just pretend like this is not going on.
Well,
instead, here's what they're doing.
It's a little awkward, right, because I don't want to make it about us, but we did look at the media echo chamber, and I will tell you, seated in the trial today, there's plenty of media there, from the New York Times, the TV host, to the 7 p.m. host on Fox was there. To your point.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. What do you think, Che, about the fact that in politics sometimes, as Brian said, the first thing is if it's a bad storyline, you hope it goes away. You hope not to have to deal with it.
Right, you cover your eyes.
Right. But if it's unavoidable, Che, then you deal with it. And that might reflect, if Brian is correct, a partial failure on the MAGA media side.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that conventional political wisdom does not apply here. Donald Trump's psychology applies here. What happened in the first 3 weeks of his trial is Donald Trump sat in that courtroom and he very much was not in control. He was being mocked as an old man who was falling asleep. He was sitting there raging as witness after witness was testifying against him. He was a man not in control. So all of these Republicans showing up, he controls them. He has power over them. It bucks him up psychologically to know that, hey, you know, I don't control this court, but I sure as hell control J.D. Vance. I sure as hell control Vivek. I sure as hell control Fox News. All of those things he controls. He needs that psychologically to get through his days now.
Well, now it's getting deep, Che, because it's sort of like Pinocchio needs, is it Geppetto? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, Geppetto is his fault. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But does Geppetto also need Pinocchio?
Yeah, Geppetto creates Pinocchio because he needs a boy to love him. You know, Fox News needs Trump because they need content. J.D. Vance needs Trump because he needs someone to tell him what to think and what to do. Without those things, what is J.D. Vance going to do? Write a sequel to Hillbilly Elegy? No, thanks. Yeah. You know, he needs direction. He needs guidance.
Yeah, and if he tried to write a sequel to the Hillbilly Elegy, his nose would be growing even further to take the obvious payoff of the analogy. Brian, J.D. Vance was mentioned. Here he was in court along with others outside the courthouse. Take a look.
The judge inside, his daughter is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump, raising money for Donald Trump's political opponents.
The judge's own daughter is making millions of dollars doing online fundraising for Democrats.
The judge's daughter is a political operative and raises money for Democrats.
Now, here's the Geppetto of it all, Brian. Again,
yes.
I don't mind overextending an analogy. It's my toxic trait. But the strings are from the defendant, who was held in contempt, which is not nothing, over the very words we just played. So after he was held in contempt, he did partially back down by not reposting that. He kind of pulled back during the trial. Defendant Trump held in contempt for those scurrilous attacks on a family member of the judge. I can tell you other defendants would be in jail at Rikers for that. Right. Geppetto gets the wooden senators to come and repeat the same points that he is now restricted from saying.
Yes, he is experimenting, trying to figure out how much he can get away with as this trial rolls on. And we should not lose sight of what an aberration this is in American history. Lawmakers used to know better. They used to keep their mouths shut when there was a criminal trial going on. Here's the Associated Press lead tonight, Ari. The House Speaker, quote, is turning his Republican Party against the federal and state legal systems that are foundational to the government and a cornerstone of democracy. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. One of those Fox personalities that you showed earlier in the hour, they're on the air saying this is a show trial that violates the rule of law. So they're taking all the words that matter and they're flipping them around into reverse and saying the opposite is true. And we just have to recognize that that mirror world is very much a part of this trial.